Rawteur. In Frank Herbert's Dune, the Shai-Hulud, or sandworms, are legendary creatures that dominate the desert planet of Arrakis. They refer to them as Shai-Hulud, that's where the name comes from, and it actually means old man of the desert. So the deal with these sandworms is that they sense rhythmic vibrations. So if you're walking across their turf without care, you're basically ringing a dinner bell. The Fremen have a special way of moving across the sand to avoid this. You know, if you've ever seen the movies, it's kind of like a wax on, wax off type of thing. If you remember from the Karate Kid, how they wax on, wax off. So they do that with their feet. But if you mess up, the Shai-Hulud will come charging, and there's no easy escape once they're onto you. Some of their strengths would be the sheer size and power, which make them practically indestructible. And I mean, seriously, not much can harm them. Even the best weapons barely leave a mark. They're also extremely territorial, and getting near their spice beds, forget about it, you're toast. However, that same sensitivity to vibration can be used against them. If you can figure out how to walk just right or throw them off with something rhythmic, there's a slim chance you might avoid them. Plus, even though they're revered as gods, the Fremen have figured out how to ride them, so maybe they're not completely untouchable. This creature is at the peak of this iceberg list because it's one of the most popular and widely known. With each following creature, we'll dig deeper down, eventually reaching the ultra niche and rarely recognized worms found in movies, series, and video games. Graboids are the ultimate underground predators from the Tremors franchise. These things burrow beneath the ground, hunting anything that causes vibrations. In the small desert town of Perfection, Nevada, they show up out of nowhere, turning the town into a feeding ground. These creatures are about 30 feet long, with tentacles that shoot out of their mouths to grab unsuspecting prey. Their entire strategy revolves around stealth. They burrow underground until they're right under you, and then they've got you. It's a threat you can't see coming until it's way too late. One of the scariest strengths of the Graboid is how fast they learn. In the first movie, they figure out how to outsmart the humans by taking out the roads, houses, and anything that might give the characters an advantage. I mean, you gotta give it to them. They're actually one of the smarter worm-like creatures on this list. They also move fast, really fast under the surface, so outrunning them isn't an option if you're caught off guard. Fortunately, Graboids have limits. They can't go through solid rock, so if you can get to high ground, you've got a chance. They also rely heavily on sound, so if you can stay quiet or create distractions, you might buy yourself some time. Unlikely though. In Return of the Jedi, we meet the Sarlacc, a terrifying creature living in the Great Pit of Carkoon on Tatooine. Jabba the Hutt throws people into the Sarlacc to punish them with what has to be the slowest, most gruesome death imaginable. I mean, according to legend, the Sarlacc slowly digests its victims over 1,000 years. So if you fall in, it's going to be a long, painful process. A key characteristic of the Sarlacc is that it doesn't need to chase after its prey. It's all about trapping. The moment you fall into the pit, escape is nearly impossible, and if you do somehow manage to survive, you're going to have some serious scars, both physically and mentally. That said, the Sarlacc is immobile, stuck in the pit, waiting for victims to wander too close. It's actually a vulnerability. As we saw with Boba Fett, escape isn't entirely out of the question if you're resourceful or lucky. Tim Burton's Beetlejuice introduces sandworms, massive, surreal creatures that exist in the netherworld. This is where things get trippy. When the Maitlands, our main ghostly couple, venture outside their home into the netherworld, they risk getting attacked by these creatures. If you remember in the movie, the most recent one, the original, or even in the cartoon, which I absolutely loved Beetlejuice the cartoon, sandworms are enormous, long, and striped. They burrow through the sand, waiting for something or someone to make the wrong move. They're aggressive and relentless, and once they lock onto something, they don't stop attacking. Their size and ferocity make them one of the more dangerous threats in the netherworld. However, despite their aggression, sandworms can only exist in the netherworld. They can't leave, so as long as you stay inside your designated ghost territory, you're safe. They're also a bit unpredictable and chaotic, which means they can sometimes get distracted long enough for you to make an escape. In Futurama, the worms of Saturn show up in the episode Parasites Lost. These microscopic worms infect Fry after he eats a very sketchy gas station sandwich. It's a life lesson for all you guys that eat those glizzies. I'm gonna get a parasite. In order to figure out what's going on, they shrink down and enter his body. There, they find a highly advanced society of Saturnian worms. Thanks to these worms, Fry becomes the best version of himself. Smarter, more confident, and stronger. Of course, Fry eventually realizes he can't rely on the worms forever. I mean, I don't know, would you have kept them? I might have. If they're forced out, he goes back to his old self and the enhancements disappear. Essentially, they're only beneficial if you're okay with not being fully in control of your own body. The middle of this iceberg is where creatures are still recognizable, but not quite as iconic as those at the top. The Seti eel is the stuff of nightmares. It was introduced in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Khan uses these parasitic worms as a form of torture and control. They burrow into the ears of their victims, wrap around their cerebral cortex, and well, let's just say it's not pleasant. The creatures force their victims to obey orders and cause immense pain in the process. Khan uses these worms on Captain Terrell and Commander Chekhov, making them experience agonizing pain while being forced to follow his orders. Once inside, the Seti eel has near complete control over its host's mind. The victim becomes a puppet essentially, unable to resist the commands of whoever holds the leash, which is exactly what Khan wants. As creepy as the eels are, they're not unstoppable. If the worms are detected and removed early, the victim can be saved before full control is established. And sometimes, like with Captain Terrell, the host can resist just enough to break free. The space worm, also known as the Exogorth, makes a brief but memorable appearance in The Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon hides in what they think is an asteroid cave. Surprise, it's actually the mouth of a gigantic space-dwelling creature. This space worm is massive, big enough to swallow the Millennium Falcon, and lurks within asteroids waiting for the next unlucky starship to wander inside. Its size alone is its greatest strength. I mean, we're talking about a creature that can house a starship inside its mouth and still have room to move around. It's an ambush predator relying on ships flying straight into its jaws without even knowing what's coming. Despite being able to swallow whole ships, the Exogorth isn't exactly nimble. It's stationary inside an asteroid, so if you can figure out what's going on in time, like Han Solo did, you can make a quick escape. This is the lower part of the iceberg where things get more niche and the worm creatures start to delve into more obscure territory. The Thresher Maws are colossal worm-like creatures from the Mass Effect universe. These terrifying beasts are scattered across various planets in the galaxy, particularly those with desert-like or barren environments. The first time you encounter one of these beasts is an unforgettable moment in the game, especially if you're caught off guard while exploring a seemingly peaceful planet. Their sheer size combined with the ability to burrow and launch deadly acid attacks makes them formidable foes. Plus, they can live for hundreds, even thousands of years, which means older ones are even more dangerous. One of their main weaknesses is that they're largely stationary. While they can attack anything that moves close to them, once they've surfaced, they have limited mobility and a well-prepared crew can take them down, assuming they have the right equipment. In Peter Jackson's King Kong from 2005, Carnictids show up during the infamous pit scene. After the main character falls into a deep chasm, these grotesque, worm-like creatures emerge to feast, With their long, slug-like bodies and sharp-toothed mouths, they waste no time in trying to devour anything that moves. The Carnictids fit right in with the horrifying ecosystem of Skull Island, where practically everything is trying to kill you. These creatures are brutal. They can wrap around their prey, suffocate them, and use their rows of sharp teeth to shred their flesh. Their strength lies in their numbers and their persistence. Yet, despite their terrifying appearance, they're relatively fragile. They can be killed with enough force or quick thinking, but if you're caught off guard, it's game over. The Xenoxyphos worms from StarCraft are lesser known creatures within the Zerg swarm. The Zerg are an insect-like alien race that use these worms as part of their strategy to infest planets. These worms are integral to the Zerg's rapid expansion and invasion tactics, playing a crucial role in the success of the swarm. They help the Zerg spread across planets quickly and efficiently, providing the swarm with crucial mobility in battle. They're also resilient and can survive in some of the most hostile environments. Like other Zerg units, they rely heavily on the swarm's collective consciousness. Without direction or support, they're not much of a threat on their own. The Slurm Queen appears in the Futurama episode Fry and the Slurm Factory. This giant slug is the not-so-secret source behind the popular Slurm beverage, which turns out to be a secretion from her body. Fry and the crew discovered the truth after Fry wins a tour of the Slurm Factory and uncovers its grim production methods. While the Slurm Queen herself doesn't seem outwardly hostile, the fact that she controls an addictive drink that people can't stop consuming is disturbing enough. Her size makes her immobile, so physically she's not much of a threat. Plus, once people learn the truth behind Slurm's production, her empire is at risk, though it seems like many people are still addicted regardless of the source. In Doctor Who, the Crinoid is a plant-like alien that takes over other living creatures, eventually turning them into plant monsters. The Crinoid worm makes its debut in the classic episode The Seeds of Doom from 1976, where a group of scientists discover the creature frozen in Antarctica. When thawed, the Crinoid begins its deadly transformation, infecting anyone it touches. What starts as a small, plant-like creature quickly evolves into a massive plant hybrid monster that is nearly unstoppable. Once it infects a host, the Crinoid takes over the body, turning the victim into part of its plant-based collective. It also grows rapidly, becoming harder and harder to stop as it consumes more plant matter. Cold temperatures slow the Crinoid's growth, and fire is highly effective in destroying it. Like most plant-based creatures, it can't handle flames. Additionally, early detection and removal of the infection can prevent a full takeover. The Slug Creatures from Night of the Creeps from 1986 are parasitic alien worms that infest humans. The film does a good job mixing sci-fi with horror as alien worms invade Earth and begin taking over human hosts. Once inside a human, the slugs control the body and turn the host into a mindless, murderous puppet. These creatures spread rapidly across a small town, infecting anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. The slugs reproduce quickly and can infect large populations in a short amount of time. Once inside a host, the slugs are incredibly resilient and can turn the host into a dangerous zombie-like predator. Fire is highly effective at destroying the slug, and they rely entirely on their host to survive. If the host is killed or the slug is removed, the parasite can't survive on its own for long. There are tons of facts about I Am Legend that you probably don't know. Check out this iceberg video next to find out what they are.